If they play dirty, then you must respond differently. If they lie to you, betray you, manipulate you, smile directly in your face while secretly planning your downfall, then you need to understand one brutal truth that most people realize far too late. The world is not ruled by the kind. It is ruled by the aware. And the moment you refuse to recognize the game being played around you, you become the easiest piece on the board to sacrifice. Niccolo Machiavelli once wrote, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command." But hidden inside that statement is a much darker warning. The people who refuse to understand power will always end up living underneath the power of someone else. Right now, there are people around you who are not playing fair. They pretend to be allies. They pretend to respect you. They pretend to support your growth. But beneath the surface, they are calculating, observing, and studying your weaknesses quietly. And if you remain naive, if you continue believing everyone around you has pure intentions, then you will slowly lose ground without even noticing it happening. But Machiavelli left behind rules. Ruthless rules. Rules most people are too afraid to admit are real. These are not rules of kindness. They are rules of survival. And when someone decides to play dirty against you, these rules can become the difference between being destroyed or becoming untouchable. The first rule is something that makes many people uncomfortable because it forces them to confront a painful reality. Never fight the game with innocence. Most people believe that being honest and straightforward will protect them. They believe truth alone wins battles. But Machiavelli warned that the world is not governed by ideals. It is governed by perception. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." This single idea explains why manipulators often rise while good people struggle. Because manipulators understand something most people ignore. The battlefield of life is psychological. When someone attacks you with manipulation, lies, or betrayal, and you respond only with pure honesty, you are bringing a candle into a storm. Imagine someone at work spreading subtle rumors about you. They smile politely. They shake your hand, but quietly they whisper things that damage your reputation. Now imagine you respond by simply explaining the truth and hoping people will understand. You think truth alone will save you, but the manipulator understands something deeper. People believe emotions faster than facts. Suspicion spreads faster than truth. And by the time you explain yourself, the perception may already be formed. Machiavelli studied rulers, kings, generals, men who survived brutal political games, and he observed something terrifying. Those who only relied on goodness rarely kept power. Not because goodness is weak, but because goodness without awareness is blind. If someone plays dirty against you, your first step is not anger. It is awareness. You must recognize the tactics being used: manipulation, triangulation, silent attacks, reputation poisoning, emotional traps. When you see the pattern, something powerful happens. You stop reacting emotionally and you begin responding strategically. And that shift alone can make manipulators deeply uncomfortable because their greatest weapon is your innocence. Once you see the game, their weapon disappears. Machiavelli once warned, the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. In other words, your environment reveals the true battle you are fighting. If you are surrounded by people who constantly compete, sabotage, and deceive, then pretending you live in a world of pure fairness will only make you the easiest victim. Understanding this does not mean you become cruel. It means you stop being blind. And that leads to the second ruthless rule, a rule so powerful that once you understand it, you will start seeing manipulation everywhere. Control what people see, not what you feel. Most people walk through life emotionally exposed. When they are angry, it shows. When they are afraid, it shows. When they are hurt, it shows. And while honesty feels morally right, it also gives manipulators a map to your vulnerabilities. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, religious, but he must also know how to act otherwise when necessary." This is one of the most misunderstood ideas ever written. Machiavelli was not saying you must become fake. He was saying something far more strategic. You must control perception. If someone knows exactly how to trigger your emotions, they can control your reactions. If they know what hurts you, they know where to strike. If they know what angers you, they know how to provoke you. But the moment you become unreadable, the game changes. Think about the most dangerous chess player. It is not the one who shows panic when under pressure. It is the one whose face reveals nothing. Manipulators depend on emotional signals. They watch your reactions like scientists studying experiments. Did that comment upset you? Good, they will repeat it. Did that criticism make you defensive? Good, they will push harder. Did that silent treatment make you chase them? Perfect, they now know they control the emotional frame. But when your reactions become calm, measured, even mysterious, something fascinating happens. They lose their compass. Suddenly, they cannot predict you. Suddenly, their psychological strategies stop working. And when manipulators lose predictability, they begin to feel the same anxiety they once caused in others. But this leads to a far more dangerous principle, one Machiavelli hinted at repeatedly in his writings. There is a moment in every power struggle where kindness alone stops protecting you. And if you fail to recognize that moment, someone ruthless will. Because the third rule is not about perception, it is about power. And it explains why some people who look harmless are actually the most difficult opponents to defeat. Because the third rule is not about perception, it is about power. And it explains why some people who look harmless are actually the most difficult opponents to defeat. The rule is simple, but it is also terrifying to those who have spent their entire lives trying to be liked. Do not respond softly to deliberate harm. There is a difference between misunderstanding and calculated disrespect. There is a difference between a mistake and a strategy. Many people cannot see that difference, and because they cannot see it, they keep forgiving behavior that was never accidental. Machiavelli understood this clearly. He wrote, "Men should either be treated generously or destroyed because they take revenge for slight injuries but cannot do so for severe ones." At first glance, this sounds brutal, but the deeper meaning is psychological. Small punishments invite retaliation. Weak responses encourage repetition. But decisive boundaries create fear. Imagine someone repeatedly undermining you in meetings, making subtle jokes at your expense, questioning your competence in front of others. Each time it happens, you laugh it off. Each time you remain polite. Each time you say nothing. From your perspective, you are being mature. From their perspective, you are being trained. They are learning something every single time you tolerate disrespect. They are learning that you will allow it. Human beings constantly test boundaries, sometimes consciously, sometimes instinctively. They push a little, watch your reaction, and then decide how far they can go the next time. If your response is weak, the next push becomes stronger. Niccolo Machiavelli studied political rivals who used this exact strategy repeatedly. First came a rumor, then public criticism, then direct attacks. And each escalation only became possible because the previous behavior was tolerated without consequence. This is why powerful leaders throughout history became known for decisive responses, not because they loved conflict, but because they understood a critical principle. Reputation shapes behavior before conflict even begins. When people believe you are incapable of defending yourself, they feel safe attacking you. But when people believe crossing you carries consequences, most conflicts disappear before they even start. Think about the individuals everyone avoids provoking. It is rarely because those individuals constantly fight. It is because everyone already knows they will not tolerate disrespect, and that reputation becomes a shield. Machiavelli warned rulers that cruelty used once decisively could prevent endless conflict later, while constant softness invites endless challenges. Again, this does not mean becoming cruel. It means understanding proportional response. When someone deliberately tries to damage your reputation, your position, or your peace, responding with silence every time does not make you noble. Sometimes it simply signals vulnerability. A calm, controlled, firm response can change everything. Not emotional, not explosive, not desperate. Just clear. Once that boundary is seen, many manipulators immediately retreat because they are not looking for real battles. They are looking for easy victories. But here is where the fourth rule begins to reveal something even darker about human nature. Some people do not attack you because they hate you. They attack you because they envy you. And envy is one of the most dangerous psychological forces Machiavelli ever studied. He wrote, "Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. But there is a third impulse hiding beneath both: comparison. When people see someone rising, gaining influence, gaining attention, gaining respect, something uncomfortable awakens inside them. Not everyone celebrates another person's growth. Some people feel threatened by it. And when people feel threatened, they begin searching for ways to restore balance. Sometimes that balance comes through quiet sabotage. They question your achievements. They minimize your progress. They subtly criticize your character, not openly, but carefully, just enough to make others doubt you. This is why Machiavelli warned leaders to be extremely careful with how they manage perception among those around them. Because the more visible your rise becomes, the more silent competitors begin to appear. These competitors may even disguise themselves as friends. And this leads to the fourth ruthless rule. Never reveal all your strength too early. Most people, when they begin succeeding, make the same mistake. They celebrate loudly. They reveal their plans. They show their full capability. They believe transparency builds admiration. But Machiavelli observed something different. Visibility creates targets. When people see exactly how powerful you are becoming, two reactions appear. Some will admire you, but others will begin planning ways to stop you. The more predictable your path becomes, the easier it becomes for others to block it. This is why some of the most effective strategists move quietly. They reveal progress gradually. They keep certain abilities hidden until the exact moment those abilities are needed. Machiavelli described this through the image of the fox and the lion. He argued that a ruler must learn to become both. The lion frightens the wolves, but the fox recognizes the traps. Strength by itself is not enough. Intelligence by itself is not enough. Real survival requires both. Now imagine someone in your environment quietly studying you. They observe how you react under pressure. They study your habits. They notice who supports you and who disappears when things become difficult. And then imagine revealing every intention, every ambition, every strategy you have. At that moment, you hand them the blueprint needed to sabotage you. But when your actions are less predictable, when parts of your strategy remain hidden, your position becomes much harder to undermine. History is filled with people who appeared ordinary until the precise moment they revealed extraordinary capability. And by the time everyone else realized what was happening, the advantage had already been secured. This is why Machiavelli believed mystery itself was a form of power. The less people completely understand you, the harder it becomes for them to control you. But something even more unsettling emerges when you begin applying these rules. Because once you stop being predictable, once you stop being emotionally transparent, once you stop tolerating subtle attacks, something strange happens. The same people who once tried to manipulate you start treating you differently, more carefully, more respectfully, sometimes even fearfully. And that reaction reveals the fifth rule, a rule many people sense but rarely admit. Respect and affection are not created the same way. Machiavelli wrote one of his most famous lines about this psychological truth. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. This sentence has terrified readers for centuries, but its meaning is often misunderstood. Machiavelli was not saying people should become tyrants. He was describing a reality about human behavior. Love is emotional and unstable. Fear is rational and predictable. Someone who loves you today may betray you tomorrow if their emotions change. But someone who fears the consequences of crossing you will think carefully before acting. This is why many powerful individuals throughout history focused on cultivating respect first. Respect creates distance. Distance creates caution. And caution prevents unnecessary attacks. Think about the people who constantly experience disrespect. They are often extremely kind, extremely forgiving, extremely patient. Yet strangely, those qualities sometimes invite more mistreatment instead of appreciation. Why? Because human beings subconsciously test power dynamics. If someone shows endless tolerance for bad behavior, the mind quietly registers something dangerous. There are no consequences here. But when someone demonstrates calm authority, controlled boundaries, and the willingness to respond decisively when necessary, the psychological environment shifts. People begin choosing their actions more carefully. Their words become more respectful. Their behavior becomes more calculated. Machiavelli believed the most stable position was not love alone and not fear alone, but a balance where people respected your strength while recognizing your fairness. Because pure fear eventually creates rebellion, and pure kindness invites exploitation. But balanced authority creates stability. Still, there is another level to this psychological game that very few people recognize. Some conflicts are not meant to be fought directly. Some conflicts are meant to be redirected. And this brings us to the sixth rule, one of the most intelligent forms of power Machiavelli ever described. Never fight every battle yourself. There are moments when confronting someone directly gives them exactly what they want: attention, drama, emotional engagement. Some manipulators thrive on conflict because it allows them to paint themselves as victims while provoking you into reactions that damage your reputation. If you fall into that trap, you may win the argument but lose the perception battle. Machiavelli observed that the most skilled leaders rarely fought every opponent personally. Instead, they used influence, alliances, and positioning to shift the battlefield. Sometimes the most powerful response to an attack is not confrontation. It is elevation. When you continue improving, gaining influence, expanding your capabilities, The individuals trying to sabotage you eventually face a reality they cannot manipulate. You are no longer operating on the same level. Their attacks begin to look small, petty, desperate, and slowly the environment itself begins isolating them. Because people instinctively move towards strength, stability, and confidence. This is the quiet strategy many successful individuals use without ever announcing it. They do not waste energy fighting every critic or reacting to every attack. They continue building. They continue rising. And eventually, the distance between them and the people trying to pull them down becomes too large to matter. But there is still one final rule, a rule Niccolo Machiavelli hinted at throughout many of his writings, a rule explaining why some individuals remain powerful even while surrounded by jealousy, rivals, and hidden enemies. Because the ultimate defense against manipulation is deeper than tactics. It is inner control. And when someone truly masters that level of control, something remarkable happens. The game itself begins losing its power over them. Because the seventh rule is not about controlling others. It is about reaching a point where others can no longer control you. Master your emotional center. Most conflicts are not won through force. They are won through emotional discipline. The person who controls their reactions controls the direction of the interaction. The person who stays calm while others become emotional quietly gains the advantage. When someone insults you and you explode, they control you. When someone provokes you and you lose focus, they control you. When someone can manipulate your fear, anger, loneliness, or need for validation, they hold the strings. But when you remain composed, observant, and internally stable, manipulation begins to fail. People can only pull emotional levers that still exist inside you. This is why the most dangerous individuals are often the calmest people in the room, not because they feel nothing, but because they are no longer ruled by every feeling that appears inside them. And once you master that level of self-control, the entire social game changes. Because the world can pressure you, but it can no longer move you. They are won through emotional stability. The person who controls the emotional temperature of a situation often controls the outcome of the situation itself. Machiavelli understood this deeply, even if he rarely said it in such spiritual language. He studied rulers who lost their power, not because they were weak, but because they were impulsive. One emotional decision, one moment of anger, one reaction driven by wounded pride, and everything they built collapsed. He warned that fortune favors the bold, but he also observed that reckless emotion destroys even the boldest leaders. Think about the manipulators you have encountered. Their entire strategy depends on one thing: your reaction. They provoke you so you will explode. They insult you so you will defend yourself desperately. They spread rumors hoping you will panic. They challenge you hoping you will react emotionally. Because once you react emotionally, you become predictable. And once you become predictable, you become controllable. But when someone reaches a point where their inner center cannot easily be shaken, the entire dynamic shifts. Insults land softly. Provocations fall flat. Manipulation becomes obvious. Suddenly, the person who once tried to destabilize you is standing alone, throwing stones into a lake that no longer ripples. This is a level of power very few people ever reach. Because mastering others is easier yourself. Machiavelli observed rulers who controlled armies but could not control their pride. Leaders who controlled nations but could not control their anger. And in the end, their greatest enemy was not their rivals, it was their own impulses. When you begin mastering your inner state, you gain something manipulators cannot access: Psychological independence. You stop needing approval. You stop fearing criticism. You stop chasing validation. And when those chains disappear, manipulators lose the levers they once used against you. Because manipulation works by exploiting emotional needs, the need to be liked, the need to be understood, the need to prove yourself. Remove those needs and manipulation becomes almost impossible. This is why many of the most powerful figures in history developed an almost quiet, detached presence. Not cold, not cruel, but centered. They listened more than they spoke. They observed more than they reacted. They revealed little, but understood much. Machiavelli admired this quality because it made leaders extremely difficult to destabilize. Enemies could plot, rivals could whisper, critics could shout, yet the individual remained composed. And that composure itself became intimidating because people expect reactions. When someone refuses to react in predictable ways, the psychological advantage begins shifting. Imagine a manipulator trying to provoke you with criticism. They expect defensiveness, but you respond calmly. They try sarcasm. They expect anger, but you respond with silence. They try gossip. They expect panic, but you continue moving forward unaffected. Slowly, they begin to feel something they never expected: powerlessness. And that is the moment the entire game changes, because the truth is something Machiavelli understood better than most. Many battles are decided long before they are fought. They are decided in reputation, perception, and psychological posture. When people believe you are easy to manipulate, they will attempt it. When people believe you are easily provoked, they will provoke you. When people believe you tolerate disrespect, they will test your boundaries endlessly. But when your reputation becomes something different, when people sense calm strength, controlled responses, and an ability to see through manipulation, the attacks begin fading. Not because the world suddenly became kinder, but because predators seek easier prey. Machiavelli once wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." In other words, awareness early prevents suffering later. Many people spend years confused by betrayal, manipulation, and hidden hostility because they never studied the darker side of human nature. They believed goodness alone would shield them. But Machiavelli was not writing to destroy goodness. He was writing to protect those who possessed it. Because goodness without wisdom becomes vulnerability. But goodness combined with awareness becomes power. And when you understand the 7 rules hidden inside Machiavelli's brutal observations, you begin seeing the world differently. You begin noticing subtle manipulation much earlier. You recognize envy faster. You understand why certain people behave the way they do. And instead of reacting emotionally to every situation, you start moving strategically. Calm, measured, aware. Suddenly, the same situations that once confused you become obvious. The same attacks that once wounded you become predictable. And the same people who once tried controlling you slowly realize something deeply uncomfortable. Their game no longer works on you. Because the greatest transformation never happens when you destroy your enemies. It happens when their tactics stop affecting you entirely. When their words can no longer destabilize your mind. When their manipulation can no longer reach your emotions. When their approval is no longer necessary for your confidence. That is the moment real power begins. You stop living defensively. You stop fearing hidden agendas. You stop wasting energy trying to manage every opinion around you. Instead, you move through life with quiet authority. The same quiet authority Machiavelli recognized in leaders who truly understood power. Not loud, not chaotic, not desperate, just controlled, just aware. And people feel the difference immediately. Just ready. And when someone finally decides to play dirty against a person who understands these rules, they quickly realize they may have chosen the wrong opponent, because the individual they expected to manipulate has already seen the game. And once you truly see the game, you can never be controlled by it again.